John Lund as Johnny Dollar.
Jack Loring, Johnny. You'll have an easy time earning your money on this one. All you have to do is fly up to Sault Ste. Marie and sit around looking important while the Coast Guard does all the work.
All the work on what?
Why, a fellow by the name of Carl Richards set off a bomb on an ore boat, the Hampton Queen. Damages amount to some $56,000. We're covering the Hampton shipping lines on her.
Well, if the Coast Guard's handling it, what do you want me there for?
Just a formality. Richards disappeared after the explosion. Only quite some time before the Coast Guard picked him up. There won't be anything for you to do. A real snap.
Yeah, I've heard that before. But somehow it never turns out that.
Something to think about, Dollar.
Yeah. What was the other thing?
Carl Richards came to the Sioux 25 years ago. Married, started this supply boat business, raised a family. In all that time, he never said a bad word against anybody. Never cheated a man out of a penny. Lived a sober, industrious life. What could a man like that set off a charge of powder aboard an old boat for?
I'll trade one of my questions for yours, Captain.
Oh, what is it?
Why did he disappear?